Dear colleagues, we welcome you again to the Ukrainian Media Center Reforms. And now we'll talk about the changes that have to happen in the fishing industry of Ukraine. And the speaker is head of the State Agency of Fisheries of Ukraine, Yarema Kovaliv. And as recently, the most interesting topics that pertain to this sphere is fighting corruption and alleged introduction of individual licenses for fishing and angling. We'll hear what is really happening. The floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear President, everybody who sees us. I'll tell you about corruption. I'll tell you about the directions of reforms that are planned in our sphere. I will be ready to answer your questions after my brief presentation. I am a person from business. I've never been a state official. I am intolerant to corruption, and what I saw and faced during my work was really scary. As an example, there's a lot of things, systemic things, that lead to the regrettable situation that we're in. There are things connected to people, there are things connected to the fact that, regrettably, the regulation in our industry promotes corruption. We'll talk about systemic fight against corruption, and I'll first would like to dwell on the reform of protection of fishing. The fishing inspection now is a disaster. Unfortunately, it is a part of poaching, and it does not protect our water reservoirs, and the reforms will not work if the control does not work properly. Because our initiatives were supported on the 30th of September, the liquidation of Fishing Protection Service was confirmed, and the creation of the fishing patrol. We will increase the number of fishing inspectors who will protect our water reservoirs, and we will decrease the number of administrative personnel. And we have in this relation the experience of countries that did this in their reforms. In Georgia, almost 280,000 people were dismissed, and due to this optimization, we will be able to raise salaries from 1,500 hryvnia to 4,000 to 6,000 hryvnia, which is the salary of a fishing inspector. So this proposal, and also transparent and open to the public contest, will allow to involve to attract to the new fishing patrol honest and decent people who will be ready to fight corruption, who will be able to work for all other citizens who are interested in fishing and angling. Regrettably, the situation is very regrettable in material sphere, and of course only the good salary without a modern boat, without oil and petrol will not allow us to work, because many problems proceed from the fact that on the one hand we don't have enough lubricants and the oil and the petrol. On the other hand, in order to fill the tank in your boat, you have to take bribes. So one of the issues is really providing the fishing inspectors with lubricants and petrol. We want to teach our fishing inspectors new methods of work, and the European countries use drones, they use night vision devices. So the new fishing patrol, first of all in Kiev and Kiev region, we will buy modern equipment. We have involved and we are talking actively to European countries so that our workers can study there, so that European colleagues share their experience with us, and very soon the first training will be held in Romania. We also actively cooperate with Estonia. We work with Norway. They are ready to help us to train new fishing patrols. At the moment, more than 3,000 boats are industrially fishing in Ukraine, and we've heard many times from public activists and people who are involved in this sphere, there's a whole lot of bribery. For the boat to go to fish, to engage in fishing, they have to pay from 500 to 2,000 hryvnia. And you know, this leads to immense scope of corruption. And our fish protection bodies are not the only source of corruption in our sphere. Also our state-owned enterprises. We are finding out terrible facts of embezzlement and abuse on the part of the management. As an example, I'll quote a enterprise in Odessa region where they found out that they contracted the relatives of the present director to supply it with fish. More than that, the contract price was twice lower than the market price. So, as a result of such abuse, 18 million hryvnia were in the shadow. 47% of the entire revenue was hidden as a result of such contracts. But this is not all, however. We found out that, in fact, in 2015, this enterprise was not actually fishing, and the contracts were, in fact, could not be fulfilled. And because the state enterprise did not fulfill obligations to the private enterprise, there was a fine amounting to 1% of the money in operation. They had to pay 3 million hryvnia to a private enterprise, and this was after Maidan, you know. And the contract was signed after the Maidan. The head of the enterprise was appointed at the beginning of this year. We launched an inspection and we found out such terrible facts. Most of the enterprises that my agency manages are loss-making. Only a couple of them have shown profit more than 2 million hryvnia, which is really a drop in the ocean, and we asked the Ministry of Economy to include these enterprises into the list of enterprises that have to be privatized. At the moment, they are just a source of enrichment for their managers. who are real criminals or inclined to crime. And on Friday we found out, as a result of audit, the fact when almost 10% of the entire catch of fish was hidden, and we think that the money went to the managers. We have initiated the petition to the law enforcement bodies. We have they have detained several managers of our territorial bodies. We're awaiting the conclusion of law enforcers, and I thank all the concerned citizens. I can tell you that people address me through Facebook. For instance, we have launched in Cherkasy region the checking of a petition or a letter from a amateur angler who saw some embezzlement, and we are under control. We would like to see the results sooner, of course, and to report that there is no corruption, but we will be able to do this only with joint effort. And someone has said very correctly that all our activists of corruption are very much afraid of the light. We will make every fact public. We will publish it on our sites so that people see that there is a movement, that something is changing. But of course, our main hope is for our global reforms. There are 13 resolutions that were adopted in September that pertain to the reform of our sector, and one of the resolutions tells us about the simplification of regulation of having access to industrial fishing. We are simplifying this to just one permit, and we prolong its term of validity from 1 year to 5 years. A lot of what we are doing is aimed, in essence, to the fight against corruption. Thank you.
Any questions? But before that, I would like to ask a question as a moderator. You mentioned that corruptionists are afraid of the light. Why don't you name the companies? We have one small problem. If we also had the role of law enforcement bodies, we could be talking about that. Unfortunately, that's not our competence legally. If you name someone, they immediately say that that's blackmail and they can go to the court. So we can say that there are such facts. We address law enforcement bodies. If needed, we give such confirmation to journalists, to law enforcement bodies, the companies that you cannot name. So are the cases filed against them and the investigation? As soon as the cases are filed, the cases have not been filed, we will make it public and we will say that the criminal case has been filed and the such and such facts are being investigated. Interfax Ukraine. Could you please say, is there a chance that all the citizens of Ukraine will have to pay for fishing like it's all over the European Union? I know that in Czech Republic people pay for the license and only then they can fish. I know that in the Agricultural University there's a Department of Fishery. Will you attract young specialists to this newly created fishery guards? And also, why cannot Ukraine become the producer of fish? I will start from the last one. Really, till recently in Ukraine legally, we could not be engaged into maritime culture. Usually people are raising fish in ponds. Now the situation has changed, and now there is a resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers which approved the typical contract, and the methodology for payment for such part of water reservoir has been approved. We signed, and that is signed that it will be made public, and that is what will give an impetus to the development of another sector in our economy, creation of maritime companies. What's positive about that? Setting up such companies will allow to raise expensive but popular in Ukraine types of fish, sea bass and dorado. So that's a positive news for our entrepreneurs and possible investors. Also, as to paid fishing for amateur fishermen. You're right, in the most countries of Europe, I don't know where it's not the case, but in most countries of the European Union, people have to pay for fishing. It's different amount depending on the country. That money is then used to for raising fish, and the amateurs are ready to pay because they know when next time they come to this water reservoir, they will be able to catch fish. In Ukraine, that has been several times initiated by the professional association that unite the amateur fishermen, and we started an open discussion of that issue. The position of the agency is we do need to discuss it, but I believe till the moment we make some basic things, till we organize everything in our fishery, till people can feel that the number, that there are now fewer violators. If we are moving towards Europe, then we will have to talk about that. And I believe that's quite a positive thing, especially because the amateur fishermen, they say that we are ready. If we feel that we can get better situation than now for money, then we are ready to pay for that. There was a question about attracting young students as to teaching. Yeah, you were right. After we announced the enrollment into a new fishery patrol, they will all be enrolled and they will be trained, and we now are working on the on this, and we will be training people, but also the National Agricultural University will also actively be participating in that. And they have already suggested the special program for that. Could you please tell how much money you need to start this patrol? Where will you get the money from? And are there companies who would be interested in raising expensive, popular types of fish, and when they will be able to do that? What's your forecast? I will clarify. Is there already the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers to set up such patrol this year? This is a good question that's being discussed now. At least there is a will to help us. This is not big money. Talking about the total budget, we need about 15 million hryvnia this year. Next year it will be not more than 200,000 hryvnias, but this doesn't mean that all the money will be from the state budget, because there was a lot of negotiations. There were many negotiations with different international organizations of the countries which are ready to help us, and we do hope that we will be able to renew to get more money. So 15 at the expense of internal optimization, at the expense of cutting down the positions like specialist on fighting corruption. We will be able, without increasing the financing from the budget, we will be able to redistribute the money, and we'll be able to offer about 6,000 hryvnias to our new personnel. Do you believe that's competitive on the way of fighting? I believe that's better than 5,000 hryvnias. Of course, just the salary will not stop corruption, but many people come to me and they say we are ready to work free of charge, but we just don't want to have the perpetrators. There are many people who really take care, and they want to bring it all to order. They say we're waiting for when the competition is over. We would like to come to you and to submit the documents. So when will this be happening? I believe that maximum it will take 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we will make an announcement. We are waiting till the resolution is approved. Any colleagues? Any questions? Andrei Kulikov. Back to the issue of licenses for amateur fishing. Will this be the similar approach to fishing in sea and in the rivers? Will we get to the British version when all the caught fish is to be returned to the water? If we think that amateur fishing is recreation, is like spending time. I met one of your colleagues, the journalist, who was saying that all the fish I catch, I set it back, set it free back. And this is correct, but I don't think that we need to say that that is the only way to fish. Now 3 kilograms is the norm that you can catch free of charge. Many amateurs are saying, well, 3 kilograms, when I'm fishing I will not stop and I will catch more. Just give me the chance to pay officially for what I catch in excess. This is quite a disputable issue. We need to listen to amateurs, and gradually we need to introduce the reform. Do we need to set all the fish free? Probably yes, if that is the fish which in size, according to its size, which is small, or the one which ensures the reproduction. We need to probably give the right to take some fish home. Sometimes it's needed because that is sometimes the population is to be regulated. Yes, there will be the difference between fishing in freshwater and in sea, but we cannot talk about anything specific. Any other questions? Agri News, you were saying that there are the tasks, certain tasks, but have you done anything already? Have you fulfilled some of the tasks as to what has been fulfilled? We have not stopped we were not waiting for these strategic comprehensive reforms which we're implementing now. For each fact of the corruption, of the abuse, we were reacting, and we have about dozen of the heads of territorial departments who were dismissed. We had to open competitions for replacement of the heads. That was a surprise for me. It was nice to hear that people were surprised that all these competitions are open and there were no agreements. People were had to pass the tests, and these new appointments did produce some results. In Odessa region, after I heard about the facts of corruption in Belgorod-Dnistrovsky, 17 inspectors were fired. They were suspected in such illegal activities. As to the heads of state-owned companies, you remember I mentioned this company that had 100% fine for non-supply of production. This head of the company was fired, and the new competition is appointed. But the biggest results we expect to have by the end of the year, also when all the draft resolutions are made public. It's about 13 draft resolutions of the Cabinet of Ministers that will mean introducing new rules in our sector, deregulation, the possibility to get engaged into maritime culture, and also the issues related to deregulation in other spheres will have many positive pieces of news in the nearest future.
As the change, as a rule, despite any contest or whatever, especially in corrupted spheres, meets resistance, and this means that there will be court cases launched by those who were dismissed. Do you have enough legal or financial resources to take part in such court proceedings? Because, for instance, the Anti-Monopoly Committee does have such problems. Have you faced this problem? How do you plan to solve this issue? Well, I think that there will be a lot of such cases and such claims. And this concerns 1,500 people who will be warned and then dismissed. And there will be a lot of people who will contest such dismissal. At the moment, the situation is that we can cope with such a flow of claims, but we'll see what will happen in the future. But we do see the goal that we are driving at, and we are decisive in moving towards this. Well, these are beautiful words to finish today's briefing, but you have said a very important thing. Very few people who come here say that they have a clear-cut aim and they are approaching it. Before I give the opportunity to ask the last question, we are ready to support you, and we are going to provide you with an opportunity to make any announcements, and you can also always count on our help in supporting reforms. And this was one of our discussions inside the agency. When I see that there's no understanding in what we are trying to do, let's try and see how we envision the ideal agency, and proceeding from this ideal, let's plan how we plan to go. With 2,000 weekly, I just want you to be more precise. You said about firing people. Well, at the moment we have 1,700 workers. We understand that we will have 1,400 workers, but I do hope that we will be able to dismiss many more people. I don't want to rush ahead and name the concrete numbers, but we are interested in decreasing the number of employees as much as possible so that we can pay a better salary to our new employees so that they duly perform their duties. Thank you very much. This is the last briefing for today. Please follow our announcements. Have a good day. Bye bye.